Welcome to I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentry. Tyson, I'm pumped up, man. We've been teasing this for a long time. We got it coming. It's our 2026 SEC preview. This is something that we do every single year for the past 4 years as we started this podcast, or kept this podcast rolling, I should say. If you guys are unfamiliar, this is one of the best things that we do personally. It gets us ready for college football season. We've had other people say that they use this as a way for them to get ready for the college football season. So if this is your first time tuning in, we preview the Power Four conferences. We give you what happened last year. We highlight the coaches, coordinators, returning production, all that good stuff. And then we just kind of give our thoughts on, like, what's the overarching theme around this team? Like, do we think that they can win? How do we think things are going to go? We just kind of take it from there and we roll through the conference, and that's the way it's going to work. Now, this year we've done some different iterations. We're going back to our tier system. We think this might be the better way for you to follow things. We've gone alphabetical. Well, we're going back to the tiers. And for each Power Four conference, we're going to do it this way. Our favorites tier, who we think actually can win the conference. The contenders tier, if everything goes right, maybe these guys can win the conference. The middle of the pack tier, guys that we don't think can actually compete or win this conference. And then the bottom feeders, which, teams, there's always got to be some teams that are going to end up in the bottom of this conference. Maybe they're rebuilding. Maybe they're not good enough. Or maybe, they're historically one of the bottom feeders of the conference. And that's how we're going to do things this year. Tyson, I always say this, your conference, because you're an LSU fan, just kind of overarching themes as we get ready for this preview that you've done or that you think about this conference heading into research season as we get ready for the first week of the year.
Well, if you've been in a coma since January, half of the SEC is brand new. We have new coaches on pretty much like 50% of these teams we're going to talk about, or at least the ones we spend time on. And that's no disrespect to guys like Arkansas or whatever, but the Texas breakdown will be a little bit more in depth. And that's why we have it in a tier system, is because when you put 45 schools into a conference, it takes a little bit more out of us to give every single team our attention. But I think that's the biggest thing here for the SEC is new. And some of them are new faces altogether, and some of them are, oh man, Lane Kiffin was at Ole Miss, now he's at LSU, or this player was here and now he's here. And there's a lot of incestuous nature here as well, which never mind, I'm not going to make that joke. But I think that if you're, coming in blind to the SEC, this year has potential to be really, really fun. I think that last year was a disappointment. I think that's fair to say for the conference as a whole. There was big dogs that didn't eat. And there was a lot of hype around some teams. The hype got squashed week 1 with Texas, or week 0, whatever it was, where it was like, and then Florida State gets rolled, or Bama gets rolled by Florida State. And it's like, I don't know what's going to happen in the SEC this year. And Georgia doesn't get it done. LSU was a massive disappointment. The big dogs didn't show up this year, Brad. I think that we've got some, especially with the playoff format the way it is. If you did not like hearing SEC fans when the conference had won a bunch of titles in a row, you're certainly not going to like hearing them when all these teams make the playoffs.
3 straight years, 3 straight non-championships for the SEC. And how about 3 straight non-championship game appearances from the SEC? That's something to note. Can they change things this year? That's what everybody's hoping for down south. Let's get into it. This is our favorite tier. We have 2 teams. We're going to start with the actual favorite, according to odds makers in the conference, and that's the Georgia Bulldogs. According to FanDuel, they're plus 280 to win this conference. Now, Kirby Smart back for his 11th season in charge here in Athens. He is 117-21, a ridiculous record, 2 national championships, of course. Coming off an SEC championship again, Mike Bobo back as the OC, Glenn Schumann back as the DC. Then you got Gunnar Stockton returning as a signal caller, coming off a 2,800-yard passing season, 70% completion percentage, 24 TDs, 5 picks, 460 more yards on the ground, and 10 touchdowns. Returning experience-wise, Tyson, 71.8% of their offensive yards are back, which is 8th in the country. 57.9% of their tackles are back, 12th in the country. 66 O-line starts back, 46th in the country. They got 7 returning starters, 6 of them back from last year's team. 7 returning starters on defense, 6 of them back from last year's team, imported a starter on both sides of the ball, but they have the 18th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele. So those are the stats for you. Georgia getting a tougher schedule this year than they had last year, but this young team from Georgia was able to kind of blossom through the fire last season, and now they look poised to win another SEC conference championship this year.
So I'm not disagreeing with Phil Steele here, but I'm going to push back a little bit on Georgia having the 18th toughest schedule. Because, Brad, if we run through this, if you pull it at home, there is zero chance that Georgia misses the college football playoff this year. Start of Tennessee State, Western Kentucky, Arkansas, 3-0. They're going to destroy Oklahoma when they catch them at home. They're going to destroy Vanderbilt when they catch them at home. They got to play Bama on the road. I'm not worried about that game. I don't think if I'm Kirby Smart and company. We'll see what Bama has to offer. They're going to destroy Auburn. They're going to beat the shit out of Florida. The Ole Miss game might be at a point where Pete Golding is more focused on finding his next chew than he is on postseason aspirations. And then you finish off Missouri, South Carolina, Georgia Tech. Is there even 2 losses in there for the Georgia Bulldogs? Like, I really struggle to see it. And so I think this is a team where maybe if they struggle in the regular season, they don't play in the SEC title game, they're making the playoff. And I think that is it's a proposition that is a little scary for everyone else because Kirby Smart has shown us last few years not as much, but this is a team that has built throughout the regular season to the point where when they are playing Georgia Tech, it's like that line is going to be 70 points. And I think that as far as loaded goes in college football, there's a handful of teams that are going to be really good, and we'll talk about a couple of them in this preview, and we'll talk about even more when we get to the Big Ten and a few in the Big 12. Georgia is as loaded at this point in the year as anybody in the country, and they got a coaching staff that's been there, done that. They can drop rings on the table. I don't think you need to be concerned at all if you're a Georgia Bulldogs fan.
I don't think so either. You ran through the schedule well. I mean, at Bama maybe is the tricky one. Florida's coming off a bye. That's going to be played in Atlanta though, so that's not even going to be the largest outdoor cocktail party in Jacksonville that it's normally is. So yeah, this is inflated because of guys like you in the SEC. Well, our worst teams would beat your worst team or your best teams. It's like, no, because actually your worst teams get crushed by the other worst teams in the conference. As we see in bowl season we don't care about bowl season. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. So the hypothetical SEC machine keeps rolling on. I'm just saying that because Tyson's the only SEC person I can make fun of here.
I don't chant the conference initials when the other teams are. When Ole Miss is playing or Georgia is playing, I want them to lose by 40. I'm not with the conference pride. I'm not from the South, man. I'm from Montana.
You're also sane. Like, I don't know. Like, dude, I'm not rooting for the Big Ten. I'm rooting for Penn State, and we'll get into the Big Ten later. But I mean, no, I just think it's hilarious, and I always roll my eyes at it. But Tyson, Gunnar Stockton's a gamer. And he's a classic college football guy.
He's a classic Georgia quarterback, dude. This iteration, it's like maybe it culminates with Gunnar Stockton goes ballistic and they go undefeated and win a natty.
Maybe because we've seen them able to do that with non-NFL QB type guys. Now, Tyson, I think college football is getting to you need an NFL guy to win, but Georgia's proven they don't need that. And Gunnar Stockton's just a gamer. My concern is though, Isaiah Cannon, he's their receiver that I circled. He's transferred in from Georgia Tech, 33 receptions for 480 yards, 4 touchdowns. Now, homegrown-wise, Georgia can feel pretty confident in their ability to develop and stuff, but I think this is going to be a ground-first attack. Nate Frazier's back. Chauncey Bones is back. Don't have to rely on the pass, so maybe he can kind of grow into the season. But if I had to circle one thing I'm concerned about, it's the passing attack here.
And I think that's fair. I also don't know how much they're even going to have to throw to win 11 football games.
Let's move on to the last team that we have in this tier of the favorites, and that's Texas. They're plus 330 as we're recording this on FanDuel to win the conference. Steve Sarkisian in his 6th season, coming off a 10-3 season last year. He is 48-20 at Texas. A little disappointing, I think, if you ask me. But Kyle Flood, offensive coordinator, Will Muschamp, the defensive coordinator, which is new, and that's something I think could be interesting to note here. Now, Arch Manning is back. We all know that it was a struggle early in the season, but Tyson, he still finished with 3,100 yards, 61% completion percentage, 26 TDs, 7 picks, added 10 more scores on the ground with 400 rush yards, performed much better late in the season. I think that could potentially build into this year if you're looking on the positive end of things. Returning experience-wise, they got a lot coming back, man. I mean, 22nd in the country with 62.6 of their offensive yards returning. 44.4% of their tackles are back, which is 50th in the country. 89 offensive line starts, 26 in the country. 6 of their returning starters are back, but 9 returning starters overall if you include transfers. 5 defensive returning starters, 7 overall if you include transfers. However, Phil Steele believes the Texas Longhorns have the toughest schedule in the country this season. And boy, I'll tell you, if you want to go through it, it is stacked. But Texas here, man, they're talented, but they got a gauntlet ahead of them.
Yes. Luckily for them, they get a little warm up with Texas State before jumping into the Ohio State test, which when you get them out of the way at the beginning of the year, they don't matter as much. Like Texas didn't miss the playoff because they lost to Ohio State. They missed the playoff because they lost two more along the way, and it just became clear that they weren't going. That the expectations weren't going to be met. A lot of people are saying Arch Manning is poised for a monster year, Brad, and I think that that's a double-edged sword because he's going to get ripped if he doesn't deliver 4,500 total yards and 40 total touchdowns this season. But they got a shiny new toy on that offense. They got Cam Coleman walking in the building. They've got some running backs showing up here. This is, to me, is Steve Sarkisian cut for this? Is Arch Manning cut for this? Because this is a team who, for all intents and purposes, the schedule is really tough. It's Texas. This team should win a national championship.
Every single year, that's the goal. They got as much talent as anybody. Their recruiting is off the chain. The money down in Austin to put into this program is ridiculous, NIL and recruiting-wise. I mean, Hollywood Smothers, you get from NC State, had 939 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. Raleek Brown, you get from Arizona State, over 1,000 yards, 4 touchdowns. Those are your 2 guys. Then you go and get Cam Coleman, like you mentioned, who as a freshman or was as a sophomore, I believe, last year at Auburn, 56 catches, 708 yards, 5 touchdowns. You keep Ryan Wingbo, which was not an inexpensive keep, almost 1,000 yards last year at 834 with 7 touchdowns, and Emmett Mosley back, another developmental piece. So, this team is talented. It's just, honestly, Tyson, Sarkisian's the question mark, and Arch Manning. Like, you laid it out. Those are the 2 question marks you have to have about this team. And I think if you're circling stuff like, okay, I have an issue or I have a question marks about them, those are where you got to start.
Yep, and I would say, too, that if Texas underperforms, I'm putting more on Steve Sarkisian and the coaching staff than I would on any player because we just did a hot seat episode where we went on Lincoln Riley. Man, Sark is like, you can't keep can't keep building these rosters to not do what you're supposed to do.
Let's get into the contenders tier here. Both Tyson and I think these guys can win if things go right, but we're not necessarily
going
on them as they should. Dark horses, maybe. Yeah. Let's start with Alabama. Plus 850 on FanDuel to win this conference. They went 11-4 last year. This is Kalen DeBoer's 3rd season. He's 20-8 there. People would think he's got a losing record, the way that the discourse is down there. And at Alabama, Ryan Grubb, his offensive coordinator, Kane Womack returns as the defensive coordinator. Now, Tyson, I think Keelan Russell is going to get the starting nod here. He'd be a redshirt freshman. This would be his 1st season. This guy's super talented. We know that. Incredible prep career. I think he's going to win this job when it's all said and done. Now, it might not be the first week if they may do the dual QB stuff. Oh, we're going to keep kind of things rolling over into the season. But I think it's ultimately going to be Keelan Russell. 30.7% of their yards are back. That's 81st in the country. 46.8% of their tackles are back. That's 43rd in the country. Only 30 offensive line starts back. That's 105th in the country. I think that's something to keep an eye on, especially because Tyson, only 2 returning starters on the offensive end of the ball. They only brought in 1 transfer level starter. Or starting level transfer to make 3 on the offensive side. Defensively, though, I think this is probably for the best. They have 5 returning starters, 7 of them, if you include transfers. I think that's a good thing, especially under Kane Womack. 19th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele.
And I think that the biggest thing here for Alabama, you mentioned the offensive line, the covers being a little bare as far as guys coming back. Brad, they couldn't run the ball. They averaged 2.9 yards a carry in SEC play a year ago. The SEC has changed a bunch. College football as a whole has changed a bunch. Indiana showed us a year ago, every team that's won a national championship, hey, we're going to run the ball for 125 yards at least in this football game, and they can't do it. And so that's where I think that's where the season is for Alabama. It's going to be between the tackles, and it's not saying, I'm a Kalen DeBoer guy, but some of that cute stuff works in the Pac-12. It's not working here. And this is expectations through the roof. And he knew that when he took the job, but it starts with running the football. It ends with running the football. This is a team that has to find an identity because, Brad, they haven't had one since Nick Saban retired.
Ryan Coleman Williams, I think that's the guy, remember, formerly known as Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old who had the insane play against Georgia. And that's really kind of been his legacy, right? That's what everybody thinks about. Has he really been that good ever? Well, last year it was a disappointment with all the drops. Still caught 50 balls for 689 yards, 4 touchdowns. So not necessarily, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, things like that, but still a talented guy. And I think he's going to have to really step up if Alabama wants to do a whole lot this season. let's get into your guys here, LSU. I'm just going to throw stuff out, and then you can go through stuff because you're going to give some insight here. Lane Kiffin, first year in charge, 116 and 53 overall as a head coach. This is a new era. He brings in Charlie Weiss Jr. with him as the OC, keeps Blake Baker on as a defensive coordinator. They bring in Sam Leavitt at quarterback from Arizona State. He did not have a good season last year, dealt with some injuries, but 1,600 yards, 61% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, 3 picks, 300 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns. You keep Harlan Barry at running back and Caden Durham at running back. You can speak more to that, but I'll finish off here. 20.9% of their offensive yards are back, which is 100th in the country. 31.6% of their tackles are back, which is 98th in the country. I think this is the key here, though. 107 offensive line starts, 13th in the country. 9 returning starters, 9 transfers. And if you include the transfers they brought in, which is notable, 6 defensive returning starters, 6 if you include the transfers, which is also notable, which tracks when you get a new head coach. 15th, toughest schedule. Tyson, share a little bit more insight here at the LSU Tigers.
This is a great place to start. When we were talking about everything is new, LSU would be kind of the poster child for that. Lost a ton to the draft and into the portal, and Lane Kiffin completely overhauled this roster. I think that we all know Sam Leavitt is kind of the person people have circled, like preseason newcomer of the year in the SEC, like that means anything. But this is a guy who was pretty good for the majority of his tenure at Arizona State, and that seemed to end so poorly that you don't really know who's walking into the locker room in Baton Rouge. But Brad, the biggest transfers that LSU landed, in my mind, are Jordan Seaton at tackle and Prince Umanamelon, the defensive lineman from Ole Miss. That's an infusion of physicality. Jordan Seaton is going to go in the first round whenever he comes out, the same way Caden Proctor did, where it doesn't really matter what the dude puts on the field. He's going to test off the charts. This is a roster who hasn't had a lot of chance to play together, but it's also one where when you look at it, you go, damn, they got a lot of good players. And I think the sneaky thing here when we talk about everything being new, Lane Kiffin and company were able to retain Blake Baker. And this defense last year they look like LSU. And so when you combine those things, that's where it gets a little spooky, I think, is that the season can go 3 ways. The most predictable was LSU wins 9 or 10 games and things are fine. They could be bad with all of these transfers, but this is the epitome of dark horse, because if Lane Kiffin comes in here and he says, man, let's put our nuts on the table. We got the best roster in the country. They might.
This is their schedule. They open the hosting Clemson, which question marks there. We'll do the ACC preview later. I'm just going to go through some of their big games. At Ole Miss, which we know is going to be insane. Maybe the most anticipated college game of the season.
Lincoln might get murdered. Like it's on the table, dude.
It's crazy. So you go from that, then you turn around and you host Texas A&M, which that's always a crazy rivalry game. You play McNeese, and you go to at Kentucky, home Mississippi State, who's off a bye. So that's kind of a soft spot. Then at Auburn. So you get really some new coaches or not good teams there. Bye. Then you host Alabama, who's coming off a bye, host Texas, at Tennessee, at Arkansas to close. So I think this schedule is pretty gettable, Tyson. If I'm looking at things, if LSU on the upper end can kind of match or meet the expectations that are placed upon them, you bring in somebody who's a really good offensive mind, and like you said, you keep Blake Baker at defensive coordinator. I think there are upper levels that LSU can compete for an SEC championship if everything goes right.
And let's be very clear about this tier of the conference. Just because we have them in the contender tier, the dark horse tier, doesn't mean that everyone that we've talked about in this tier and everyone we're going to talk about, all of these teams expect to make the college football playoff. It's not in the Big 12 when we have this tier, it's guys that would be thrilled to make the college football playoff. Bama expects to be there. LSU expects to be there. Everyone that we're going to get into outside of everyone we have in this tier wants to win.
Oh, in this one, interesting. Oh, for sure. And they should. I mean, all these teams should be aiming for the college football playoff, like you said. And let's talk about this team who was just there and honestly could have been in the championship game, and that's Ole Miss. Pete Golding takes over as the full-time head coach. John David Baker's the new offensive coordinator. Brian Brown takes over as the defensive coordinator. Trinidad Chambliss returns. Now, he's an early Heisman favorite, man. A ridiculous season he had last year. Almost 4,000 yards passing, 66% completion percentage, 22 tuds, only 3 interceptions. Was not even supposed to be the starter. Wasn't the starter for the first week. Took Austin Simmons getting hurt for Trinidad Chambliss. to take over as a starting quarterback. Kwan Lacey is back, 1,500 yards, 24 touchdowns last year. Insane. A lot of people thought he was going to follow Lane down to LSU. That did not happen. Returning experience-wise, 61% of offensive yards back, 26th in the country. Only 26.4% of their tackles are back, 113th in the country, which I thought is pretty notable considering that Pete Golding stayed. 92 offensive line starts are back, 22nd in the country. 5 returning offensive starters, 7 of them if you include transfers. 5 returning defensive starters, 9 of them if you include transfers. So, yes, you maybe not have a lot of your percentage of tackles back, but you at least get 9 starter caliber players through the transfer portal. Ole Miss given the 16th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele.
This is a team where we're going to find out if the postseason run was fueled by like FU Lane Kiffin, like we're good and we know this. And if that runs out at any point throughout this season, I think that Trinidad Chambliss and Kwan Lacey are good enough by themselves to win you a handful of football games. I think that people that are saying Pete Golding's defense is primed for a huge year, sorely mistaken at the difference between being ask Brent Venables what it's like going from defensive coordinator to head coach and how to maintain that thing, keep it rocking. And so that's something I'm interested to watch. Stupid talented. They got a ton of really good players. I think that this has potential. It's a powder keg. Like it could go really bad, or this team could end up playing again. In the semifinals. I don't see that, but it is in the realm of possibilities here. I lean more towards, hey man, they're gonna be really fun and they're gonna win 8 games.
Tyson, I keep hearing this from everybody who's talking about Ole Miss. Well, Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss did great without Lane Kiffin. Charlie Weiss Jr. stayed and was the offensive coordinator. Charlie Weiss Jr. is no longer there. Now you're talking about, well, we're trying to keep some of the verbiage the same. Boy, I'll tell you, that's tough when you're trying to blend stuff. UOC should come in and just be like, this is what we're running. This is what we're installing. Like, okay, well, what did you guys call this? Like, needs to be everybody on the same page. You're comfortable with this as the coach and the coordinator. This is what we're doing. This is what we're calling this stuff. This is basically professional football, semi-professional football, the way these guys get paid now. You're paid to study the playbook and understand what the hell I'm calling. So that's a red flag for me. Now, Trinidad Chambliss looked really good last year. What was the environment of? A lot of dudes were schemed wide the hell open because that is an elite offensive staff. A lot of that pressure was taken off him because Kwan Lacey was freaking insane. So what happens if stuff changes this year? What happens if the offense takes a step back? That is the question marks I have for Ole Miss. Plus, I am not buying into Pete Golding as a head coach. Tyson, are we not forgetting that freaking Ole Miss was held back because of his defenses? The offenses were insane at Ole Miss. And it was always the defense. We're like, God, their defense stinks. Now all of a sudden this guy, like we're looking at him like he's the best defensive mind in the country.
But he has a backbone, Brad. And he stood up to Lane Kiffin. He said, I'm not going with you. It wasn't on the table. It wasn't. Pete Golding wasn't going to Baton Rouge, man.
And I'll say this too: if you're Pete Golding, you of course take the job. Are you kidding me? Like you take Ole Miss and you even think twice about it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens here in the Pete Golding era. You mentioned Brent Venables. Let's get to Oklahoma. They went 10-3 last year. Ben Arbuckle back as OC. Todd Bates, the defensive coordinator in name, kinda. John Mateer back as the quarterback. Now, there's a clear demarcating line when it comes to Oklahoma and John Mateer before and after the injury. We'll talk about that. But ultimately, he finished with 2,800 passing yards, 62% completion percentage, only 14 TDs, 11 picks. That is gross. Added 431 on the ground, 8 touchdowns. This offense could not run the football by any stretch of the imagination. Now, this is what you want to hear if you're interested in Oklahoma. 67.2% of their offensive yards are back. That's 16th in the country. 51.2% of their tackles are back. That's 27th in the country. 97 offensive line starts are back. 18th in the country. 6 returning offensive starters. 9 if you include the transfers they brought in. 7 defensive returning starters. All 7 of them were homegrown guys. However, 5th toughest schedule in the country. The SEC has not done Oklahoma any favors scheduling-wise. However, this is an opportunity, I think, here, Tyson, that they could really take a step forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are really high on Oklahoma this year, and I think it sounds silly, but it really all hinges on John Mateer and health because, they couldn't run the football last year, but it's hard when this guy can't throw. Everything in his body is broken, and we're just going to load the box and see what happens. And Oklahoma, we still kind of think of them as like this offensive powerhouse. That has not been the case since Lincoln Riley left, and it doesn't look like it's going to be the case to me this season because I don't believe in John Mateer the same way the rest of the country seems to right now. And I think that, like, you're seeing Oklahoma floated as high as 3 in some of these preseason rankings that people are doing. I'm not seeing that. I think that this is a team where I'm happy to eat my words at the end of the year. I like Venables. I like the way that this team plays football, but I just don't think that they're better than 4 or 5 other teams within their own conference.
Torrey Blaylock, Xavier Robinson back. They combined for less than 1,000 yards and less than 10 touchdowns last season. You bring back the 2 running backs you had an issue running the football with. We'll see how that works. A little bit older. Here's where I think you're looking at the weapons wise, like, okay, this could be the vision. This could work. So Isaiah Sategna's back, 67 catches, 965 yards, 8 touchdowns.
Dude.
Bring in Parker Livingstone from Texas. You think that guy, Texas guy, is not going to be motivated to go stick it to his old school in that rivalry game? Brings over 500 yards, 6 touchdowns with him. Then Trell Harris coming in for Virginia, 847 yards on 59 catches and 5 touchdowns. There are weapons for Mateer. And I think the vision for Oklahoma is we combine our defense, led by Brent Venables, who's has been really good the past couple of years, and we finally have an offense that's firing all cylinders. That is the vision. Whether or not it happens or not, we'll see. Odds makers think they're a long shot. I think if everything goes right, Oklahoma could certainly win the SEC, but everything really has to go right for them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's finish off here on the contender tier with Texas A&M.
Does this feel disrespectful?
Not really. Because I think there's some things at play here that I think makes Texas A&M kind of fall back a little bit, Tyson. I mean, they go 11-2 last year, 7-1 in conference. But you lose your offensive coordinator, which I think is pretty big because Colin Klein took over at Kansas State, and we'll do that preview for the Big 12. There's a lot of buzz that's positive coming out of Manhattan. So you bring in Holman Wiggins as the OC. We'll see how that goes. Marcel Reed, who had a really good season last year at quarterback, 3,100 yards, 62% completion percentage, 25 touchdowns. But Tyson still, the 12 picks. It's like, dude, you kind of threw him into some trouble at times. What happens without the safety blanket of the OC? Everything's new. Again, like we said, could you try to keep stuff the same? Sure, but that can be a disaster if it's not an internal promotion, all that good stuff. Plus, you lose a ton of talent on the edges as well, which I think is something to note. However,
and 4 new offensive linemen, dude.
72.3% of their yards are back, 8th in the country. That's a big plus. 49.3% of their tackles back, 32nd in the country. 81 offensive line starts. If you're bringing in the transfers, that's 36 in the country. 4 returning starters on the offense, 10 if you're including the starters. So can they gel? That's what you're looking for. 7 returning defensive starters, 7 if you include the transfers. 28th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele.
Mike Elko has done a job that felt impossible. He took Texas A&M from that school also jumped from the Big 12, right? Like it was always
way back. Yeah.
Well, Texas A&M soft, and it didn't matter how long they were in the SEC. They were soft when they had Johnny Manziel, and when someone was coaching, it was like, well, they just don't have what it takes to compete in this conference physicality wise. And it just felt like, we don't helmet scout, but that was, you throw on that Texas A&M jersey and they're going to get bullied by somebody eventually. Elko showed up and said, no, we're the bullies, and I'm going to build this thing. So I don't care if they have 7 returning starters on defense or 0. That's an area where I'm confident in his ability to get things going. It all hinges on this new offensive staff answering questions, because Marcel Reed could win the Heisman this year. Like, this dude is so electric and so college football, it's not even funny. Like, there's 0 chance to me that this guy is going to rip up the NFL someday, but he might rip up the record books in college football with the way that he's able to move. But it could go crashing down, and this could be a team that struggles to score points, and they're in just slugfest over and over again. And so I think that there's just so many questions on that offensive side of the ball where it's hard to look at this team and go, they made it to the playoffs last year, and they're going to build on that first round loss. I think that they expect to, and I think that they should probably be happy if they make another appearance.
Mario Craver's back at wide receiver. Ashton Bethel-Roman back at wide receiver. That's huge. And they bring in Isaiah Horton from Alabama. Those are playmakers. That's what you're hoping for there. Reuben Owens at running back as well. It's about 650 yards, 5 touchdowns. So that's something to note. This offense, if you're going to do it, we'll see. That's what you're looking for. And, of course, the defensive guy of Mike Elko. That's the recipe for success. Similar to Oklahoma, I think, where it's like, okay, our defensive guy gets his defense going and we hit on the offense. That's what you're looking for there. Tyson, let's get into the middle of the pack teams. And we're going to have to duck some attacks here because we got Tennessee in this tier. And I think a lot of people, we just did a
Throw
hot seat
mustard at
episode.
it.
Boy, I wouldn't be surprised if next year, if we're maybe looking at Josh Heupel as a hot seat guy, if he has another season the way he did last year, because they went 8-5, 4-4 in conference. This is his sixth season. He's 45-20, which is fine. But boy, I don't know. It just feels like things have kind of gotten on the wrong end. It's gone off the rails. I wouldn't say completely for Tennessee, but it's not the same as it was when Hendon Hooker was the quarterback. Like, things have changed in a hurry. They bring in Jim Knowles as a defensive coordinator. I think that's something to note. But my biggest thing here, if we're talking about Tennessee, is that Faison Brandon, true freshman, is probably going to get the start here. 5-star QB, was incredible in high school. We'll talk about him, I think, because that's really going to kind of ride it. That everything's kind of hinging on that. But 36.5% of their offensive yards are back, which is 68th in the country. 49.1% of their tackles are back, which is 34th in the country. 94 offensive line starts, which is 20th in the country, which is a good sign. 7 returning starters, all homegrown. 4 defensive returning starters, 7 if you include the transfer portal. 22nd toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele.
Josh Heupel on the offensive side of the ball has taken guys. He's taken 5 nickels and turned them into a quarter. Like Dylan Sampson was a hammer on the goal line. This dude goes to the pros and he's a pass catching back, right? Like Jalen Hyatt wins the Blitnikoff Award. He goes to the pros and he's just another guy on the New York Giants. They don't even have a number 2. So I think Heupel is a guy that can get the most out of these skill position guys. I think that you're right, pointing to the quarterback battle, because everyone is expecting Faison Brandon, but like George McIntyre might win this thing, and if Heupel likes it, I'm not expecting that. But Brad, the Jim Knowles hire would have hit so much harder 2 years ago. We've seen some of the shine come off of this guy, and I think that you can talk yourself into, look at the body of work that Jim Knowles has, and can he drag this defense to just even a level below where the offense is at? Because if so, Tennessee's going to be a damn good football team. Or is this just the Jim Knowles of the last couple of years where, like, as a Penn State guy, this guy comes in the building and, oh, my God, he's going to fix everything. And then what the hell is Jim Knowles doing?
The problem for Knowles, and everybody says it, is like, it takes a long time for him to implement his stuff and the philosophy. And everybody thought at Penn State, it was like, well, this is the most talent he's had to work with in year one. Well, it's the learning curve was pretty big there. Now, here's what everybody's saying at Tennessee. Well, he brought some of his guys with him from Tennessee, so they're familiar with the concept. I do think that could help a little bit. But, Tyson, it's the linebacker and it's the secondary. What Jim Knowles needs for his defense to be successful is run-stopping, gap-plugging defensive tackles. Now, if you're going to the SEC, I mean, there's just so happens that you're going to probably throw a rock and hit 20 of those guys, and I think Tennessee probably has some of them on the roster. But I'll be curious to see if this works. I mean, I do think he's a good defensive coordinator, but it just might take time. That just might be the case. There's no shortcuts around it.
Yep.
Florida. There's a chance that they jump immediately out of the middle of the pack to contender, and it's mainly because of the coach. And Tyson talked about it off the front. This is one of the coaches that we're talking about who is a new face here, because John Summerall is coming over from Tulane. John Summerall is 43-12 at Troy and Tulane. John Summerall has been an insanely good head coach at the G6 level. He's getting an opportunity at a sleeping giant that is Florida, that has been dysfunctional, that has been looking for somebody to right the ship. And I think this guy can do it. He brings over Buster Faulkner as his offensive coordinator, steals him from Georgia Tech. Brad White is the defensive coordinator. Aaron Philo transferring in from Georgia Tech. Buster Faulkner, love this guy, over at Georgia Tech. Jaden Ball returns as running back, 1,100 yards last year, 8 touchdowns. Eric Singleton as wide receiver, transferring from Auburn. Vernell Brown, 500 yards last year, stayed. 36.5% of their offensive yards are returning, which is 69th in the country. 64.3% of their tackles back, 5th in the country, which is notable for a John Summerall team. 70 offensive line starts back, which is 43rd in the country. 4 returning offensive starters, 7 if you include transfers. 5 defensive starters returning, 6 if you include transfers. However, Tyson, 10th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele, and that's mainly because Florida's just in the tough side of the SEC. Oh, my God. But, man, this is, I think, the most excited you could be about the direction of Florida in a long time.
Yeah, and I hate the Florida Gators, but I love John Summerall, and I love watching these Tulane teams play ball. I love watching the Troy teams play, and I think that if you're a Florida Gators fan, no matter how this year goes, you just have to be excited that you have somebody in the building. This isn't Sunbelt Billy, where it was like, hey, I hope we score 50 points a game. Otherwise, we're not winning. This is a team where it might be a little bit of a slower build if they don't jump out of the pack, like you said. But I think that this is let's talk about Florida in 2 years. Similar to LSU a little bit, because Aaron Philo moves the needle, but not enough, right, to get them out of where they are. There's a ton of problems with this Florida football program, and I think that they hired the right man for the job. And I don't think in year one it's totally fair to say this team has to make the playoffs. But I think that there's a chance where we look up and we go, oh, Florida competed to win the SEC, through the first 10 weeks of the season.
Their win total 7.5, juice to the under. So odds makers expecting them to win 7 games. It'd be a major, major success if this team is in the college football playoff in year one. They're a good team. Their schedule's brutal. I think you're going to go in the right direction. You want to build on it. They went 4-8 last year, Tyson. Anything above that is a success. So let's get into Missouri, because this is a team who should have higher aspirations here. They're plus 3,500 to win the conference. And I think that's kind of crazy when you're in the situation you are with Eli Drinkwitz. This is his 7th season, 46-29. They went 8-5 last year. They started off strong, really fizzled out. Chip Lindsey, the offensive coordinator, Corey Batoon, the defensive coordinator. They bring in Austin Simmons as the quarterback, the Ole Miss guy. We'll get into that a little bit more. I'll just kind of run through some stuff here. I think this is your big concern, Tyson, because Ahmad Hardy's back. That looks great on paper, 1,600 yards, 16 touchdowns. He unfortunately was shot at a concert. Now, he's going to make a recovery, and it sounds like he's going to play this season, and all signs are pointing to him looking good. So thank God for that. But, that is just a terrible story. Jamal Roberts also had 750 yards last year and 6 touchdowns. So if Hardy is not good to go immediately, and Roberts can step in though Hardy comes along. 45.3% of their offensive yards are returning, 53rd in the country, 31.1% of their tackles are back, 102nd in the country. I think this is the thing you circle if you're looking for
how
Missouri.
How many defensive starters are coming back for the Missouri Tigers?
I have 2 for Missouri, 3 transfer stuff.
It's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough.
Be really tough.
When you have 31.1% of your tackles back, Tyson, and that's when you're at a P4 level too. That is a little bit tough. Now, here's the thing though, 118 offensive line starts. That's something you're looking for, especially for an offensive guy like Drinkwitz. Like that's at least gives you some ability to kind of stay afloat until the defense comes back to earth or can grow, I should say. 6 returning offensive starters, 9 if you include a transfer portal. 21st toughest schedule in the country, according to Phil Steele. Where do you want to take this? What do you expect from Missouri?
Not much, brother. I'm not an Austin Simmons guy, and I like Drink a lot, and we've talked about Eli Drinkowitz on this podcast, ad nauseum. I think that Austin Simmons is a guy who, you look at him, and there's just no way this fails. There's no way a guy that moves like he moves and can throw the ball like he can throw the ball is going to not succeed in college football. Trinidad Chambliss was awesome. But the fact that Austin Simmons never even got close to getting his job back a year ago, I think is a little bit of a concern, because Trinidad wasn't even floated as a guy fighting for the job in the preseason at Ole Miss. This was just a guy that they brought in from Dickinson State or wherever he was playing, NAIA level, right? And it's like, oh, Lane Kiffin found a diamond in the rough. This is cool. Austin Simmons will get his job back. Nope. And Missouri has not been a hotbed. Brady Cook is the best Missouri quarterback, of the last 6 of the 2020s, right? And Drink hasn't shown the ability to, get these guys to the next level, because Brady Cook as a sophomore was like, oh, this might be a first-round draft pick. And then Brady Cook as a junior was like, oh, my God, without Luther Burden, this guy sucks. And so I think that it all hinges on Austin Simmons, and the door hinge is broken.
Yeah, I'm not an Austin Simmons guy either. He could prove us wrong. I did not like what I saw Ole Miss early. It should be pointed out, too, if Bro Perbula didn't get hurt, maybe we're having a different conversation about Missouri, because they looked really good early on. But then they ran into some trouble in the SEC play. Didn't help that, again, Perbula got hurt. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm with you. I'm not too fond of what Missouri is going to do this season. Now, they could prove us wrong, but I don't think that's going to be the case. Now, new face, again, here at Auburn. You got Alex Golesh coming as the head coach. Just went 23-15 at USF, which doesn't sound great, Tyson, but That's a tough place to win.
Watch the games, man.
Ooh, boy, I'll tell you, that offense is awesome. He retains DJ Durkin as a defensive coordinator, which I actually think is huge for this program. Byron Brown, his quarterback at USF, follows him. He just coming off a season where he threw for 3,100 yards, 66% completion percentage, 28 touchdowns, 7 picks, added another 1,000 on the ground with 14 touchdowns, which is pretty crazy. The running game, Jeremiah Cobb stays almost had 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns, bringing Bryson Washington from Baylor, who had 780 yards, 6 touchdowns. Keshawn Singleton falls from USF, another guy that he's targeting, 877 yards last year, 8 touchdowns, but only 17% of the offensive yards are back. 105.
But they got 40 transfers coming in the building.
So many, dude. I mean, so this is why I thought it was funny. 1 returning starter, but 6 if you include transfers, which is just points to everything. And then because we said DJ Durkin stays, 3 defensive starters returned, 4 if you include the transfers. 90 offensive line searches, I think, does help if you're trying to get this thing off and running, but 44.2% are tackles back, which is 51st in the country. Tyson, once again, Auburn hitting the reset button here, and maybe they found the guy, maybe they didn't, I don't know. But I like Alex Golesh, and this will at least be exciting from an offensive perspective.
Yeah, Auburn and Florida hit the reset button like you and I hit the snooze in the morning, where it's just like, it's, even if it's inconvenient, we're just going to do it. But one of the things I like about Golesh is bringing in all of these guys from USF kind of softens the landing a little bit, because this team isn't going to compete in the SEC this year. I think that if Auburn's playing in a bowl game, you count that as a win with this roster and with this team. But having everybody around that already kind of knows the deal and how this is going to work makes that a possibility. I'm not looking at Auburn as a team. There's a reason they're not in that dark horse candidate tier for us, because if Auburn wins 9 games, I will be beside myself. I will be very, very impressed with that turnaround. I just don't see it. But I do think, look, man, the crazier things have happened. Curt Cignetti took a bunch of kids from James Madison and won a national championship. USF wasn't JMU. And so, like, that's kind of where this whole thing hinges. But they're going to be so, like, when Brad and I do NBA previews and we talk about the NBA, we have league pass teams is what we call it. Guys that we're not missing. Like, when the Charlotte Hornets are on, I'm watching the game. Auburn football is going to be a good time.
If Byron Brown hits, if he can play.
Well, if he doesn't, it's going to be so funny to watch this team play. There's no downside here to having the games on.
That's a good point. That is a good point, because the other end of the action, I mean, there could be a lot of blowups. I think, Tyson, this is an over team if we're going to talk from a gambling lens. Yeah. I mean, I think we may circle Auburn as like, oh, okay, if it hits offensively, they're good. Even so, defensively, we'll see. Now, DJ Durkin's actually done a good job, so maybe that's not unfair. That's unfair. But if that defense is out there for a million minutes because the offense can't get rolling, they could be cooked. But it all hinges on Byron Brown can make the leap. I'm not sold on it yet, Tyson. I know a lot of people are confident. Oh, he was awesome at USF. He knows this offense. Yeah, but we know the SEC is a different level, and I don't know if it translates.
Little different.
South Carolina. Shane Beamer, his 6th season. He's 33-20. We just did a hot seat episode. We had Shane Beamer on the list. They were 4-8 last year. Super disappointing. However, Kendall Briles, the new offensive coordinator. Tyson, I think that could be the biggest addition for this program. That offense under Kendall Briles is really good, and I think it could allow Norris Sellers to take the leap that people wanted and expected out of him last year. He only had 2,400 passing yards, 61% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Like, just not what you were expecting. And people are saying he's the best player, best quarterback in the country, which we all push back on. This podcast is like, guys, we were like, stop. This is crazy. Nick Harbor back at wide receiver, 618 yards last year on 30 catches, which is nuts.
Are we still into it with Nick Harbor? Are we still doing it? Do you think? Yeah, no doubt. But do we think that this is a guy who's going to put up crazy numbers, or do we think this is a guy who's going to test really well at the combine and find himself, quote unquote, overdrafted based on that profile?
Let's put it this way. If he can't get open and have an insane 1,000-yard season in Kendall Briles' offense, it's just not that guy.
Yep.
I'm into it, though. Guys, I think number 1 on the freak list again from Bruce Feldman for like the second year in a row, if I'm not mistaken.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, picture Superman in your head, essentially, running a go route, and that's kind of what South Carolina has on the field.
It'll be exciting. Other than that, Tyson, I think this is where you're going to get excited for South Carolina. This needs to be the year for you. 69.8% of their offensive yards are back, 11th in the country. 49.3% of their tackles are back, 33rd in the country. 126 offensive line starts back, that's 4th in the country. 4 returning offensive starters, 9 if you include their transfers. 4 defensive starters, 5 if you include their transfers. And the 25th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele.
This is where I'm beefing with Phil again, because I get the South Carolina schedule not being as tough as some of the other ones, because they start with Kent State and Towson. They're going to win both those games, and they get Mississippi State. They're going to win that game too. And then it's Bama, and we're going to find out who you are really early. And then you catch Kentucky, who we'll talk about in a minute, and they should win that game. And then you got Florida. That's kind of a battle of teams maybe in similar spots. And then you got Tennessee, and then you got Oklahoma, and then you got A&M, and then you get to take a little break with Arkansas, who we'll wrap the show with. And then you go Georgia and Clemson. There is a lot of teams on there with a lot of talent. And we know Shane Beamer is showed up in these moments, like he's beaten Dabo twice. He's got, again, this is another guy with heads on the wall, right? Like he's a big game hunter, but they can't slip in any of these games. They can't lose to Florida because the season's done at that point. And Beamer, it's awesome when you beat Clemson. Those people, we just did the hot seat episode, and eventually, like, hey man, you got to do a little more in the ones that matter less to you than these big ones.
So their win total 6.5, and it's juiced a little bit to the under. Boy, that feels.
They don't make a bowl game, dude. We got problems. Lenore Sellers is too good at this point. I actually don't think so. But Lenore Sellers being in the system for this long, there's no way this team shouldn't make a bowl game. Nick Harbor is good enough. We just can't give Cam Coleman flowers without saying some of the similar things about Nick Harbor. Like, these are two guys that are freaks that were still kind of waiting for the production to follow. If South Carolina wins 6 games, abject failure.
Yeah, I agree. Let's close off here. And really, Tyson, this is a team that's been in the bottom feeder category for a long time. But my guy, Clark Lee, how about turning things around? And this is what I said. I said my favorite bet in the SEC last year was Clark Lee going over, and Vanderbilt going over the win total. They go 10-3, smashed even my expectations. I had to stand up for my bald brother. This is his 6th season there. I can't believe this, Tyson. He's 26-36 at Vanderbilt.
That's awesome.
That's crazy. And in this era, this isn't taking a shot at James Franklin, but when James Franklin was doing what he was doing at Vanderbilt, we all know, like, Georgia wasn't what they were. Some of the other powers, like, Florida wasn't great. And so it was really kind of a down SEC. Vanderbilt's had to do this, or Clark Lee's had to do this when the SEC is at its apex. And yes, they haven't won the championships in the past 3 years, but before that, I mean, my God, the SEC was ripping and roaring. He retains Tim Beck as offensive coordinator. Steve Gregory's the defensive coordinator. This is the thing, though. Jared Curtis, it's a full reset from Diego Pavia. He's another one of the 5-star freshmen, number 1 quarterback in the country. He's going to start. He's going to play. Now, here's the good thing. You're not just throwing him in the wolves, I don't think, because Cedric Alexander, the running back, is back. He had 567 yards, 11 touchdowns. That's huge. Also, Malcolm Lund. Oh, my God. Malcolm Young, 414 yards, 6 touchdowns. Easy enough for me to say. Is back as well. So I do think this could be a ground and pound. Okay, we're going to kind of ease Jared Curtis in. This guy's super talented. We'll let him show it when we can. But 32.7% of their yards are back, 75th in the country. 53.8% of their tackles are back, 19th in the country, which is huge. Here's the thing, though. 58 offensive line starts are back, 59th in the country. I don't necessarily know if you're Vanderbilt, if you want to be going into an SEC schedule with an inexperienced offensive line. That's scary to me. 23rd toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele. 4 offensive starters are back, 6 if you include the transfers they brought in, 7 returning defensive starters, 7 if you include the transfers.
What's their win total over under?
5.5, juice a little bit to the over.
Yeah, and this might be another Clark Lee smash spot, because this is a team that everyone's sleeping on. And I know I keep hating on Phil Steele's schedule analysis here, but start with Austin Peay in Delaware. Should win those games. NC State should be an even match. Obviously, you got to play Georgia and Ole Miss back-to-back, but they're going to catch Auburn. They're going to catch Arkansas. They get to play Kentucky. They get to play Mississippi State. Like, there are spots here where Arkansas can make a bowl game, or Vanderbilt can make a bowl game. Arkansas certainly isn't making a bowl game this year. I'll say that before we get to them, but I'm not super into what's going on in Vanderbilt right now. As far as, like, this is a team, that can keep building, because you lose the best player in program history. Whatever your personal feelings are on Diego Pavia, we probably share them with you. But I'm not going to shy away from the fact that, like, this dude just did what nobody pretty much has done, you know, in the modern era at a place where guys don't even go to play football. It was a really impressive run. So obviously they're going to come back down to earth a little bit. But let's give Clark Lee some freaking respect, because we've got other coaches here that haven't proven a damn thing in the SEC, and they're getting – well, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt because of XYZ. Clark Lee's already won the games. He's shown you that he can do this. He's shown you he can backfill a roster and can take a guy like Eli Stowers, who's never even played the tight end position, and he can turn him into the best tight end in the country. This is a damn good football coach, and I'm not doubting anything that Clark Lee's doing.
Well said. As we get into the bottom feeder section of the program here,
we're going to try not to throw up because these guys stink, dude.
And you mentioned the guy – or some of the coaches that are like, oh my gosh, look what you can do here. Well, Will Stein, the new head coach here at Kentucky, pretty much did that for himself at SEC Media Days.
He did. No, he didn't just pretty much do it. He said it out loud.
Well, why do you think Kentucky can win? He was asked. Well, because of me. Listen, I'm all for the confidence, and I think you need to project that, especially at a place like Kentucky.
It works, it's sick.
Tyson, I thought this was hilarious. People are like, well, Kurt Cignetti said that, and look what happened there. So, of course, it's going to be that way for Will Stein too, right? Like, that's what people are implying. Kurt Cignetti, please, people, go look up his history as a head coach. He won everywhere he was. This is Will Stein's little first head coaching job. It's not apples to apples. This is a completely different situation.
And Will Stein was coaching 5-star players. You know, like, this isn't a dude. Like, Kirk Cignetti wanted Elon, people. Like, Kirk Cignetti, and you and I had this conversation where I was like, you know, we're talking about coaches, and Sig was kind of always getting slept on a little bit. Did I think he was the best coach in America? No, but I always joked with you that, like, hey, there's Darth Vader down here in the FCS. Like, if this guy ever gets somewhere else, I don't feel that way about Will Stein, and I don't think that it's a job where Kentucky's going to suck, and you can get into all of the returners and everything else. But you're painting a target on your back in this conference where there's already a bunch of other newcomers that kind of want to set I'm here too. This was a dangerous game to play when you have never shown anybody that you can back it up, and you have the talent disparity that Kentucky is going to face against everybody in the conference besides Arkansas.
I'll say this. I think it's an exciting hire for Kentucky. Yes. You just plugged the needle up and comer, move the needle. You got guys down there open up their money pockets. They're recruiting at a level now that I don't think we've seen at Kentucky that's not on the hardwood in a long time. So this is exciting. We'll see how it works on the field. Tyson, their offensive coordinator, Joe Sloan, who I believe you're pretty familiar with over there at LSU, right? Jay Bateman, the defensive coordinator. The quarterback's going to be Kenny Minchie, who's transferring from Notre Dame. Now, this is interesting to me because there was a lot of people in the Notre Dame program that liked him. Like, they thought he was going to be the starter last year until CJ Carr beat him out at the very last second. But Minchie's a guy to keep an eye on down there in Kentucky. CJ Baxter, remember that name? Tore his ACL at Texas. Didn't have a good season last year. Well, he's going to try to do it in Lexington. And then a couple other guys they brought in. Nick Anderson at wide receiver from LSU. DJ Miller, it was a holdover. Just not a lot here. Now, 21.4% of their offensive yards are back, 99th in the country. 29.6% of their tackles are back, 106 in the country. Here's the saving grace, I think, if you're Kentucky, to try to get this offense going under Will Stein. 100 offensive line starts are back. That's 15th in the country. Is that offensive line any good? Okay, well, we can do that grading and things like that. This is at least an experienced offensive line. So that's a plus. 3 returning offensive starters, 5 if you include their transfers, 3 returning defensive starters, 6 if you include transfers. The 11th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele. I think this is going to be a tough baptism by fire, Tyson. I don't see anything around it. This looks hard. They close with now the conference game against Louisville, who's got a roll in here. I don't have high hopes for Kentucky.
No, dude. And like, if Will Stein says this at the media days and then if they go bowling, like, I think that'd be a heck of a season for Kentucky. But this dude, I think, made some enemies talking like, hey, man, we're going to win 10 games. I'm the truth. You know, like, that's a little nuts.
Let's keep it rolling with Mississippi State. This is Jeff Lebby's 3rd season. He has a 7-18 record. I know some people are like, hot seat for Lebby. It's like, man, that is that is tough if you're going to put this guy on the hot seat based on what the type of resources we have at Mississippi State. Now, here's what's interesting to me, Tyson. Remember Zach Arnett, who was the head coach before Levy? He's back as the defensive coordinator. This is crazy. Camario Taylor is going to be the starter. He got on the field last year, flashed some stuff, looks pretty sick. So we'll kind of see what happens. Fluff Bothwell returning as running back, 677 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's something of note. Anthony Evans back as wide receiver. It is a great name. Aiden Williams also back as wide receiver. 38.8% of their offensive yards back, 63rd in the country. 47.9% of their tackles back. That's 39th in the country. 56 offensive line starts are back. That's 64th in the country, which I think is a little bit concerning. 5 returning offensive starters, all 5 homegrown. 5 returning defensive starters, 6 if you include the transfer portal. So at least there's some familiarity here, Tyson, but they have the 8th toughest schedule according to Phil Steele, which is just so
unfair, dude. It's unfair. And if you look at this, like if you pull this up at home, this is one where I'm like, yeah, I think Phil Steele's telling the truth. This thing is brutal. The Mississippi State season doesn't hinge anywhere because this is a team where, again, like if they go bowling, that's a good season for Levy. But it's on Camario Taylor. Because, Brad, when we were doing prep for this and you start looking up some of these teams and trying to read camp notes, there's not a single article online or a single beat reporter at Mississippi State that isn't saying, hey, I think that the rest of the country is asleep on this kid that we have here. And so I'm really excited to see it because this is a level of hype that often at schools of this, expectation level, when you're getting, hey, Camario Taylor is really good, and I think that we're going to surprise some people. It's almost always right. There's not many times where, we're sold a bill of goods and then the season starts. It's like, this guy sucks. We get that with DJ Legway at Florida. We don't get that with guys at Mississippi State. So I am excited for that.
Yeah, I think he could be awesome. And I think that's what you're looking for Mississippi State. Like, in our quarterback,
can we be fun?
Be cool.
Can we just have fun?
Exactly. Now let's close here with Arkansas. Ryan Silverfield is a new face coming in from Memphis, and I think largely a disappointing tenure at Memphis. Sure, it looks great on paper, 50-25, but they have the most resources in that conference, and they continually underperformed. And now they're going to go to Arkansas where they have less resources. Right. And so, I don't know, dude. Like, Arkansas, we'll see what happens. Tim Cramsey, the OC, Ron Roberts, the DC. You got KJ Jackson, first-year quarterback. Sutton Smith returning. He's coming with a Memphis transfer. Who are you highlighting for the other QB?
AJ Hill. We got the battle of the Jays here. And I think that that's going to be something to monitor because both these dudes are going to play. I've shitted on Arkansas a lot in this podcast, but that's because I really do feel like they're the worst team in the SEC. But we're going to get to see both these quarterbacks play. And I think that that's something that, if you made it this far in the podcast and you're like, what can I look forward to with Arkansas, is that they don't even know what they're getting week over week.
Returning experience, 19.3% of the offensive yards back, 102nd in the nation, 17.8% of their tackles back, that's 125th in the nation, 84 O-line starts, that's 33rd in the nation, so at least that's something there. 4 offensive returning starters, 8 if you include the transfers, mainly from Memphis, 2 defensive returning starters, 5 if you include the transfers, mainly from Memphis. How about this, Tyson? 4th toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele.
How many points per game did the Arkansas defense give up a year ago in SEC play?
They got cooked.
37. This was a down year offensively for a lot of teams in the SEC a year ago. It is a tough job here for Ryan Silverfield. And I think that his record this year doesn't really matter. Like, this is one of those ones where you don't even judge the guy on year 1, maybe even year 2, because this was a barren cupboard that he took over. And he had the foresight to not walk into media day and say, hey, I'm really good at this and we're going to win games. So I think that Arkansas, a good season for them would be making a bowl game, obviously, or like sneaking LSU and winning the Battle of the Boot, or just winning one of these games that they're not supposed to. I think that you could stamp. I don't think there's a number here, that's disappointing, or like, is 4 wins encouraging in Arkansas?
Yeah, I mean, they went 0-8 in conference last year, and I think 0-8 in conference the year before that. So I think one SEC win, and you're pretty happy with where you're at, especially under Ryan Silverfield. So, all right, that's going to do it for our SEC preview. Like, subscribe, and share the show. We got Big 12 coming next. Then we got ACC. Then we got Big 10. We got a ton of previews, ton of content, as well as the NFL stuff that we got as we get ready for football season. So stay subscribed. Don't miss anything we do. We'll talk to you when we talk to you. Until then, guys. Peace.